He stood there and made fun of me right at the dinner table. He said, "She could do way better than you." I shut him down in front of everybody. She told me, "You better apologize or we are finished." I just gave a little smile. I stayed quiet, but when she eventually came back weeks later, she found out exactly what it means when I say I am done. For 3 years, things were really good with Emily. Honestly, they were great. I work as an attorney, so I spend my days dealing with people at their absolute worst. Coming home to her was like taking a breath of fresh air. She worked as a paralegal. She was sharp as a tack and had this burning desire to go to law school and make a real name for herself. I loved that about her. We were a team. We were building a real future together in this old house I had spent years fixing up. It felt solid. It felt real. I was not just paying bills for some girlfriend. I was investing in the woman I was planning to marry. But there was always this background noise. It was a low hum, like something just did not feel right. That noise had a name, and his name was Toby. Toby was her best buddy from her college days. He was a graphic designer. He was the type of guy who calls himself an artist and acts like having a regular 9-to-5 job is a torture sentence. In reality, he was making menus for taco spots just to scrape together his rent. If you listened to Emily, he was her protector. She acted like he was her soulmate, just without the romance. But to me, the guy was a total leech with a superiority complex. He made it his job to mess with our relationship. He was a pro at it, too. I will give him that. He never said anything straight to my face that I could call him out on. It was always little comments wrapped up like they were compliments. He loved bringing up her ex-boyfriend, Ryan. Ryan was a musician who had broken her heart, and he was Toby's favorite topic. If I took Emily on a nice vacation to Mexico, Toby would find a way to bring up some random camping trip he and Emily took years ago. He would get all nostalgic and say, "Remember that, Emily? You cannot plan moments like that. You just have to be with someone who gets your free spirit." The message was always the same. I was the boring, safe option, and he was the gatekeeper to the exciting life she was giving up. And Emily? She bought every word of it. She was completely fooled by his act. Anytime I would even hint that he was crossing a line, she got defensive. She would say, "He is just being Toby. He was there for me when Ryan shattered my heart. He is just worried about me. He is family, Mark. I am a patient man. In my line of work, you have to be. You do not jump at the first sign of trouble. You wait. You let the other side keep talking. You let them build a case against themselves. And you wait for them to hand you the rope." I was just waiting for Toby to hand me the rope. That moment finally happened about a month ago. I had just won the biggest lawsuit of my career. It took 6 months of my life. Countless sleepless nights and weekends spent buried in paperwork. But we won, and it was a massive deal for my firm and for me personally. I threw a dinner party to celebrate. My best friends, the people who had barely seen me for half a year, were all there. And because I was still trying to be the nice guy, I told Emily to invite her crew. That meant Toby was coming, obviously. The night started off perfect. The house was packed with good folks. I had opened the expensive wine I had been saving, and I was actually relaxing for the first time in forever. Toby, naturally, was drinking up all the free booze and acting like he owned the joint. After he got a few drinks in him, he decided it was time to put on a show. He started rambling about some art exhibit, but it was really just an excuse to talk about the difference between creative people and corporate suits. He looked right at me and said, "It is just a different way of seeing the world. Some of us are driven by passion, by art. He said, others are more practical." He took a long, slow sip of the wine I bought. My friends knew exactly what he was doing, and they were shooting him looks that could kill. I just gave him a tight little smile and refused to take the bait. But he was not done yet. He turned to look at Emily, putting on his best concerned friend face. He said, "I just hope you are happy, Emily." His voice was dripping with fake sincerity. He continued, "I mean, Mark is a great guy. He is stable. He is a provider. He is reliable. He said the word reliable like it was a dirty word. Then he paused, looked me dead in the eye, and let a smug little smirk spread across his face. He said, "But you have to admit, she could do way better than you." And right there it was. The rope. The whole table went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop in that room. My friends looked like they were about to jump across the table and physically restrain themselves. Emily just stared down at her plate, blushing. She was not mad at him. She was just embarrassed that he had made a scene. That was the moment everything snapped into place for me. The picture became crystal clear. The patient lawyer was gone. The man who had just been disrespected in his own home, in front of his friends, by a guy who was living off his generosity, was now running the show. I put my fork and knife down very slowly. I folded my hands on the table and locked my eyes on Toby. The friendly host had left the building. The prosecutor had just taken his place at the podium. I said, "That is a bold claim, Toby." My voice was dangerously quiet. I continued, "I am interested in your reasoning. In your expert opinion, what does a better man for Emily look like? Please be specific. Lay out the criteria for me." Toby was completely thrown off. He was geared up for a shouting match. He was not prepared for a calm, methodical cross-examination. He stammered, well, you know. Someone more on her level. A creative. Someone who gets her." I nodded and said, "I see. So, the main qualification is being a creative type. That is an interesting theory. I assume you see yourself as fitting this description." He puffed out his chest and said, "I think I understand her better than anyone." I said, "Perfect. So, you are the gold standard. Let us examine that. Let us add a few other factors to this analysis. Let us talk about something more concrete than vibes. Let us talk about investment." I looked around the table. I said, "As everyone here knows, Emily is in her second year of law school. It is a top-tier program with a price tag to match. I am paying for that. The whole thing. It is a major investment of capital, of course, but it is also an investment of faith. Faith in her and faith in our future together." I leaned in. I said, "So, my question for you, Toby, as the self-appointed gold standard of what is better for Emily, is this. What have you invested in her future lately, other than your consistently negative opinions of me?" Toby's face went totally white. Emily shot me a panicked look. She whispered, "Mark, do not do this." I held up a hand to silence her, my eyes still locked on Toby. I said, "I am not done. Let us talk about the car she drives. It is safe. It is reliable. It gets her to school and back. I bought that car for her. Now, you have a car too, right, Toby? A cool little convertible that seems to break down a lot." I continued, "In fact, Emily has had to loan you money for repairs at least 3 times in the last 6 months, has she not? Money that she took from the household account that, by the way, I am the only one who deposits into. So, in a very real sense, Toby, I am not just investing in Emily's future. I am also paying to keep your little hipster mobile on the road. You are welcome." One of my buddies at the table actually snorted with laughter before covering it up with a cough. Toby looked like he had just been slapped across the face. And finally, I leaned forward and dropped my voice low. I said, "Let us talk about this house. The roof over her head. I own it. I pay the mortgage. I fix the things that break. You, on the other hand, have been late on your rent so many times that Emily has had to cover for you again with money that I earned." I sat back. I said, "So, let me just summarize your argument for the jury. I mean, for the table." I said, "So, your position is that a man who provides a stable home, a reliable car, and a fully funded top-tier education is somehow an inferior choice for Emily." I continued, "And you are saying that a better man, by your definition, is one who is a financial black hole, who drains all her resources, and who repays her kindness by systematically trying to sabotage a relationship out of what can only be described as a pathetic, transparent, and deeply creepy obsession. Is that a fair and accurate summary of your position, Toby? I leaned back in my chair. The closing argument was done. The room was utterly silent. Toby was a broken man. He looked like a witness who had just been torn to shreds on the stand. He just sat there humiliated, unable to speak a single word. I looked at my friends, who were all staring at Toby with open contempt. Then, I looked at Emily. Her face was a storm of emotions. But the emotion that won out, the one that broke through the shock and embarrassment, was not relief. It was not gratitude. It was pure, white-hot fury. She shot up from her chair, the legs scraping violently against the floor. Her whole body was shaking. She hissed, "I cannot believe you just did that. You humiliated him in front of everyone." I said, "He humiliated himself, Emily. I just presented the evidence." My voice sounded tired now. She demanded, "Apologize to him." Her eyes were blazing with a fire that was aimed entirely at me. She shouted, "Right now. Apologize to my best friend for what you just did. Apologize, or we are over." And there it was. The ultimatum. The final piece of evidence. She was standing next to the wreckage of a man who had just been exposed as a manipulative parasite, and she was defending him. She was choosing him. The love I had for her did not just die right then, it was executed. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw her with perfect clarity. I did not get mad. I did not yell. I just smiled. It was a small, sad, and completely final smile. I did not say another word. I stood up, picked up my wine glass, and walked into the kitchen, leaving her standing alone in the silent dining room. The case was closed. The verdict was in. The aftermath of that dinner was swift. Emily and Toby left together in a cloud of drama. She moved in with him that night. It was a decision, I am sure, that was made in the heat of her rage and his humiliation. In her mind, she had thrown down the gauntlet. She was waiting for me to come crawling back, to apologize, to do whatever it took to fix what I had broken. She had no idea that I had simply accepted her terms. For 2 weeks, I went completely dark. I did not answer her calls. I did not reply to the barrage of angry, then confused, then pleading text messages. I ignored the mutual friends she sent to plead her case. I was a ghost. Instead of chasing her, I got to work. My house, which had felt like our home, now felt like a crime scene. I spent a weekend methodically packing every single thing she owned into boxes. It was not an angry act. It was a cleansing. I was like an executive settling the estate of a dead relationship. When I was done, I stacked the boxes in the spare room, changed all the locks, and reset the security codes. Then, I made 2 phone calls. They were not pleasant calls, but they were necessary. They were the logical consequences of the verdict she had delivered at that dinner party. The first call was to the dean of admissions at her law school. I had a good relationship with him from my alumni work. I explained in calm, professional terms that due to a permanent change in my personal circumstances, the private scholarship fund I had set up to cover Emily's tuition was being dissolved effective immediately. The second call was to the managing partner at my firm. I had pulled a lot of strings to get Emily a coveted summer internship there. It was a career-making opportunity. I explained that a severe and irreconcilable personal conflict of interest had arisen and the offer had to be rescinded. I took no joy in doing this, but my support for her was based on the foundation of our partnership. She had taken a sledgehammer to that foundation. She obviously could not live in my house anymore. It was exactly 2 weeks after that dinner party when she showed up on my front porch. I watched her on the security camera feed. She was fumbling around with her key, and I watched her confusion turn into anger when the key would not turn in the lock. Finally, she rang the doorbell. I opened the door, but I left the security chain latched. She looked terrible. That righteous anger she had at the dinner party was completely gone, replaced by a weary look of desperation. The reality of living with a broke, narcissistic artist had clearly been a harsh wake-up call. She said, "Mark, we have got to talk." I replied, "No, Emily, we really do not. You made your choice. The conversation is finished." She pleaded, "You cannot just toss 3 years in the trash because of one argument." Tears were starting to form in her eyes. She said, "I was angry. I was not thinking straight." I told her, "It was not an argument, Emily. It was a moment of truth. You were given a clear choice between your partner and the man who has been trying to destroy our relationship. And you chose him." I looked her in the eye. I said, "You demanded that I apologize to him. You chose to defend the parasite. That is not something I can just forget." The panic was starting to set in as she realized I was not budging. She stammered, "But what about everything we planned? Law school? The internship?" I let the silence stretch for a moment. I said, "Yes, about that. The tuition for your final semester is due next week, is it not? I hope you and Toby have a plan to cover that, because my investment in our future has been terminated." Her face went ghost white. She whispered, "What?" I continued relentlessly, "And the internship at my firm? That offer has been rescinded. The firm takes conflicts of interest very seriously." She actually stumbled backward, her hand flying up to cover her mouth. The internship was her golden ticket. The future she had been so sure of was evaporating right before her eyes. She whispered, "You cannot do that. Mark, please, you cannot." I said, "I already have. Actions have consequences, Emily. You gave me an ultimatum. You said apologize or we are over. I chose the option of being over. Now, you get to live with the consequences." I pointed down the street. I said, "Go ask Toby for a hand. The man who is so much better than me. I am sure his creative genius includes a plan to pay your $50,000 tuition bill and replace the career you just lost." I closed the door on her tear-streaked face. I did not feel happy about it. I did not feel sad, either. I just felt quiet. The trial was over. The aftermath was predictable. Emily's life fell apart. She had to drop out of law school just months away from graduating. The dream was dead. She and Toby are apparently still living together in his tiny apartment. I have heard from friends that it is a special kind of hell. She is consumed by resentment for what he cost her. And he is stuck with a woman who is a constant, bitter reminder of his own inadequacy. He got the girl, but he got a broken version of her that he cannot afford to fix. I did not do this for revenge. I did it for myself. A relationship is a contract, and she violated the most fundamental clause, which is loyalty. My actions were not a punishment. They were just an enforcement of the terms. She wanted to know what done really means. Now she knows. It means the support stops, the investment ends, and the builder walks off the job site, leaving you in the wreckage of the house you helped burn down.